All right, we are recorded and we are back. We've actually been off like 3 weeks. So it's great to see everybody. I know most of us stay connected in some capacity, but Emily and Molly, haven't seen you in a few weeks. I hope you're doing well. And first February break official as Massachusetts educators coming back from. So it's awesome to see everybody. And if you tuned in early, it's awesome to be here because 24 hours ago I was bringing Women's Hospital, getting little stitches done. So I'm thrilled to be here with all of you, and I'm even more excited to bring in Brandon Beck, who is a code member, author of the book Unlocking Unlimited Potential. And we met a few months ago, and really just on a whim. And since then, become friends and collaborated some project on his work, and now launching a book club. So I am thrilled to have you on, and would love for you to just introduce yourself, a little bit about yourself, and we're going to get rolling.
Awesome. Well, first of all, I just want to say thanks for everybody for joining tonight, and for, I know that some of you, this is your regular thing, but I appreciate all of you coming out and, being interested in my work. And that means an incredible amount to me. So I just want to thank you all for that, first of all, and hoping that when we walk away from today, you'll be fired up for Monday. And I know some of you are coming back from a break. I'm coming back from a break being a teacher in New York. And I hope that it'll make your day a little easier transition from that, that Monday after break. So my name is Dr. Brandon Beck. I come from Westchester County, New York. For those of you not familiar where that is, it's a suburb outside of New York City. I know there's a lot of Long Islanders here, so I'm pretty much on the other side of the bridge from all of you. And I recently wrote a book, and it was published December 22nd. The title of the book is Unlocking Unlimited Potential, and it was released by Codebreaker. And I am a teacher. I'm a 5th grade monolingual dual language teacher. I call myself a monolingual bilingual educator. We can talk more about that for sure. And I'm also in addition to that, I'm also a soccer coach. I'm also a coaching education instructor for the United States Soccer Federation. And in addition to that, I also run a small business that includes servicing about 2,000 families in the Westchester area, where I act as a director, planning curriculum and programs for soccer players for kids ages 4 to 23. I'm also a college professor, an adjunct professor at Manhattanville College. I teach a class called Foundations of Bilingual Education. Once again, I am the bilingual guy. I am the monolingual guy teaching the bilingual class, which I always think is pretty interesting. And in addition to that, I am just a lover of all education, speaking, writing, and I now have a live show called the Unlocking Unlimited Potential Stories that I also have started in the new year. So it's a lot, but I think that's about it in a nutshell. I know there's some people here who are signed up already for the book club. I think you'll learn a lot more about who I am as you read the book, because I think I kind of tell it to you in a page or two. So it's great to be here.
Awesome. We're psyched to have you here. And since we've been off for a couple of weeks, I want to just jump in with our panel for a minute. Just in the last 3 weeks, tell me something exciting that's happened with you, either in education, in the classroom, or just in your life that's been pretty exciting. So I'd love for you to share. Introduce yourself too, if you have a few new people. I'm looking at the attendees who are new, and then Brandon can know who you are as well.
I'll jump in. Brandon, I have your book right next to me. So I'm very excited to get started. It's great to meet you face to face. It's nice to see everyone again. I just had a February break. I'll be back tomorrow and feel like my life is exactly the same every day, which is funny. I feel like it's, same old, but I'm looking forward to getting back and hopefully having some nicer weather. I checked the weather forecast and it looks much warmer here on Long Island than it did the past couple of weeks. So looking forward to the snow melting and just getting back. And there's just something really special about being with students in the spring and just getting through. Now we're done with the holidays and getting into nice weather again, and just hopefully continuing to get to a better, healthier place. So I have no news, but it's nice to see everyone.
Awesome. Emily and Molly, what have you two been up to for the last 3 weeks?
I mean, not too much. I was just about to say pretty much the exact same thing. It's been same old, been a lot of relaxing. We just had February break as well, trying some new recipes, setting the fire alarm off a couple times, which
Nice.
is pretty exciting, but nothing crazy, just hanging in, which, yeah, just hanging out with Molly.
Yep. We have just been doing the same old thing. We were both able to go home for a little bit over break, safely, of course, but it was nice to see family for a little bit. And yeah, not much to report.
Awesome.
You know how to set off fire alarms?
Yeah, that's a long story. We wanted. So Carrie, how, I know you told us a little bit about your 100-day challenge. What else have your daughter been doing some shows?
Yes. So I'm Carrie Bauckham. I'm a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade special education teacher from the Northwest Chicago suburbs of Illinois. And I'm also a parent of 2 children that went through dual language programming from kindergarten through 6th grade. So that's kind of fun to meet a teacher. I have so many things that are just absolutely fantastic to say about that whole program. What have I been up to? Pretty much the same. It's been kind of a wild ride with some of the COVID cases in our school and kids being remote now that weren't remote. So it's kind of riding this wave of a roller coaster. We don't have February break in Illinois. So we've been still teaching straight through. So it's been a little bit, I have a little bit of dip in emotion a little bit here. So I'm hopefully with some new weather and things like that, we'll get a break in that kind of it's just a lot. Right. So, but yeah, just the creating and drawing. My kids have been, diving into some things. I've got Annabeth, who's been sewing felt cats, which are super cute. She's my 8th grader. And then my high schooler has gotten into crocheting, which is also kind of fun to see how quickly they can pick up things that are just really hard for us to do. But no, just the same old, right? It's like a rut right now a little bit. So just trying to keep things light. I feel like it's harder to be more rigorous right now with the academics. I feel this need to play more games, which I know are good and healthy for students, but it feels like there's a guilt of I should be teaching them more, but there's just this need for camaraderie and moments and laughter. And so I'm trying to find balance with my own personal, feeling guilty for not teaching more, but having, I don't know, I know games are good, but it's just, so I find myself trying to balance that right now in my classroom.
No, and that's critically important. And as someone who's currently a district leader and was a school leader, you're doing the right thing for what we need to do right now. And having the opportunity to collaborate with other leaders across the country. We're doing actually a session on Friday about leading through COVID for Tech and Learning Leader that I'm a part of. And that's what it is, really starting to look at some game-based things, because the curriculum, as you're saying right now, and I can see it in you because you're always super enthusiastic and energetic, is it's starting to be a drain. And just so you know, it's okay, and keep doing that. Melissa, how have you been doing besides sending out awesome cards and making some amazing lessons on Twitter? What have you been up to? And then I'm going to end with you, Sari, and kick off the book club to talk about that.
Well, done with report cards.
Nice.
Done with conferences. Done with assessments.
All right. I know that was one of the last things we talked about. We were going into assessment. Everyone's like,
so happy. So now we get to have even more fun than we already have before. So let the party begin. But
I can't even imagine what that's going to look like. I can't wait to see it.
I know. And then my oldest turns 18 next week. And my youngest, who's in 7th grade, a couple of weeks ago, learned how to tie her shoes at school all by herself, no prompting. We had a little party, and she looked at me like I was a weirdo. Yay. So I was super excited. Proud mom, proud mom.
Awesome. Good to hear. And we have a couple of our recent contest winners. Stacy is here, so welcome. That's great to see. Jeff, who we're starting to collaborate with, welcome back. Alex might be a first timer, I think. I try to remember when people here, and Ellen O'Neill and many others, but I wanted to welcome you all if it's your first or second time joining us. We have our annual, our weekly viewers like my mom. At some point, we want you over here, especially after the excitement recently. So, sorry, talk to me about this book study, and then Brandon, I'm going to cue you up for what is this book in an elevator speech?
Hi, everybody. I'm Sari Goldberg McEwen, Central Office Administrator and Remote Learning Principal from Long Island, Brandon, another Long Islander here. I am super excited. Mentor Roundtable is kicking off our first ever book study. And I am thrilled, Dr. Beck, that you are going to be joining us. And it is actually going to be your book, Unlocking Unlimited Potential, that we are going to be diving into. The platform that we are going to be using is Voxer. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Voxer, it's an app that you can download onto your phone and you can text on it the same way you would text on your iPhone. But one of the most beautiful features is that you can actually leave voice messages and you can listen to it at your leisure. So, if you are commuting into work or you're going for a run, whenever's convenient for you, and that's one of the perfect parts. And having that voice and having that conversation part of it really makes it that much more authentic and genuine and personal. And the fact that Brandon is going to be joining us only enhances the experience, having the author's perspective joining in our conversation. So it's really an honor to have you jump in with us. And we are going to be kicking off a week from tomorrow with a Zoom kickoff. So we'll be able to get our book studies, going with Brandon, having that little intro. And then within the next 4 weeks following that, we'll be in Voxer. And on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we'll have some prompts that'll be dropped in and we'll be able to engage in a conversation. For those of you who are new to Voxer, we plan on sharing out some links and supports to really help you get going on the platform. Did I miss anything, Matt? Is there anything?
No, it sounded great. I think you created the survey. So if you could throw the link in the chat, I was looking for it.
Yes, absolutely.
Right now, if people want to hear. So Brandon, 2 questions. 1, elevator speech. What is this book about? 2, what would be a question you'd ask our new educators, Emily and Molly, about how they would be unlocking their unlimited potential? Because I see their potential as through the roof.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good one. I'm looking forward to that. So let's start with the elevator speech. So the elevator speech is this. So unlocking unlimited potential is about how inside of all of us, there is an infinite power. And once we learn how to control, understand, and believe in that power, then it can be unleashed among all those we serve. So the whole idea is that the journey towards unlocking unlimited potential, it begins with us. And that I truly believe that inside of all of us as educators is an unlimited potential. And once we believe in that, then we start to believe and see it in our students. And I've already heard things that have been said here on this call about some of you tapping into the unlimited potential of your students by being creative, thinking outside the box, being innovative. And that, in a nutshell, is what the book is about. So that is the 2-minute elevator speech. To go a little bit deeper, is that the book is kind of broken up into 3 different parts. And that's what the Voxer study, the book study, is going to be. It's basically going to be divided into those 3 parts. The first part is about building the foundation. And where does that foundation come from? It comes from your why. It comes from understanding who you are and why you're here, your purpose, your story. And it also starts with you taking this whole thing and making sure that you really believe in who you are through the idea of social emotional learning, growth mindset, etc. The second part is using challenges as opportunities to grow. That's where we talk about challenges that educators face, and 2 specific challenges that kind of, it doesn't really surprise anybody, but some people don't, when they look at me as an educator, they kind of, people have read the book, they're like, wow, I was surprised to read that, where I talk about being a monolingual, bilingual educator and how my opportunity to work with English language learners led me to many different discoveries, not only as an individual, not only as a researcher, because my dissertation was about that area, and also looking at culturally responsive teaching and our values. So those 3 things kind of in a nutshell. And then finally, it all wraps up with, because you can, believing in you. And the reason that you can believe in all the things in the book is because they are supported by research. And they're not just supported by research like your Dewey and your Maslow and all those great names, which are important, and they are included in the book, but also looking at personal development authors, people like Tony Robbins, Jack Canfield, Les Brown, Brene Brown, Rachel Hollis, so many different authors that I've had the opportunity to read throughout my experience that I brought into this book to show that, hey, these people are all talking about different ways to unlock your unlimited potential. And if we can bring that into our schools, it's going to be a beautiful place. So that's question one, right?
Yeah, and now, because I always feel like I put our new educators on the spot. I want someone else to do it. Like, put them on the spot. How are you going to prompt them? What are we going to ask them to unlock the potential that I think is sky high for the two of them?
Well, you know, I mean, I think when we all think back to those days when we were first-time educators, to me, especially when I was a first-time educator, nothing could get in my way. I knew nothing about unions. I knew nothing about, you know, the red tape. All I believed was that I could go into the classroom and I could just really teach from the heart. And, you know, honestly, like as I started teaching, I found out that like there were certain things that would get in my way that would slow me down. And they were honestly, they were my own beliefs. So I guess the question that I would ask our first time, new time educators is where's your head at? You know, like how do you feel about being an educator? And if this is your first experience being an educator in a pandemic, you know, how do you feel about being an educator right now? You know, that's a pretty simple question, right?
Pretty simple. What do you got, ladies?
Well, I feel like my head is at a pretty good space coming off of February break right now, because my school, I don't know if anyone hasn't seen this. So I teach 3rd grade and my school is typically hybrid and it's week A, week B. So I am in the classroom and different sets of kids come in by week, but the kids at home are still on a Google Meet in my classroom while I'm teaching. So I teach the kids at home and the kids at school simultaneously for the most part. That being said, we had a COVID outbreak, as everyone probably has, a little bit ago before, like after winter break until 2 weeks before February break. So then I was teaching from home, which is a little bit easier, I'd say, because I have all the kids in one spot, but it was really, really fun to be back in the classroom after having been out of the classroom for so long. So I feel like my head right now is like I'm kind of riding the high from getting to see my kids in person for those 2 weeks, and I'm excited to get back. I feel good. My principal is really awesome and I have a really good relationship with her, so I've been able to like do a lot of things creatively that I maybe wouldn't know if I would have been able to do if I hadn't had those good relationships. So I feel really lucky and my head is in a pretty good spot.
For me, I agree. So I am also a 3rd grade teacher in Massachusetts, and I just teach reading and writing. So I have 2 sets of kids. One is fully remote for the whole year, and one is in person when we don't have COVID outbreaks, which has been like half remote, half in person this whole time. So it's been a lot of moving around. But I feel good. Like school and physically teaching doesn't stress me out at all. Like when I'm sitting in front of my kids in person or on Zoom, like I feel very natural. I feel very comfortable, which is great. But I think the thing for me that stresses me out the most is time, especially because I don't have like the same group of kids all day long. Where like, if you have 15 minutes here, you can do something fun. Like I just have them for an hour and a half. And then I have a new set of kids for an hour and a half. And I try to keep them on the same pace. So that way we're doing the same things. I think that part stresses me out a little bit because it causes like problems with creativity. If like some groups are faster and one of my classes is 30 kids and one of them is 11 and I'm trying to do the same thing. So it's a little tough, but like I love it. And even in the middle of pandemic, like I know that this like teaching is for me, which is awesome, but it's definitely like high stress all the time because things keep changing, but so far so good.
And teaching is definitely for you. Like, don't question that. From what we've seen since August to now, you two are amazing. So Brandon, I'm going to shift the question a little because we're in a room essentially with educators here who most of us work with students almost on a day-to-day basis. How are you all doing this for your students, ensuring that they are able to reach their full potential in an environment that isn't really conducive for that? And I know, Melissa, you're full-time remote. We've talked about that all year. But I'd love for some of you to jump in and talk about how you're doing this with students. I know, Brandon, you just told us you're 5th grade. So how are you doing this with your students and I'd love to hear it as a district administrator, because I want to give that support to our principals and our teachers. And Brandon, this isn't like a raise hand type of thing. I usually just call out Melissa because she always has great answers, but rarely will just unmute herself and start talking. But besides that, if you have something, just jump in.
I'll go ahead and jump in. So I think something that, like, when I remember when I started teaching, why I started teaching, and where I am now, I think the biggest lesson I've come full circle on, and I continuously have to remind myself of, is that we tend to be really deficit driven with students, and like changing that mindset into like what that expecting that they can, and then let them show you that you can't. And that was a huge lesson. And I continuously have to remind myself, and I've been through that lesson many, many times, where my students blow me away with what they can do. And so just continuously being intentional in that the students can do, and let them prove to you that they can't. And that for me is huge when we really want to tap into our students' potential. And then the other thing that I really like to do, and I'm really intentional about, is always giving them opportunities to learn or create what they want to create. And it really gives a sense of urge, of just, it's just a really wonderful way for students to really tap into themselves, but also then stretch their own creativity, because they might create something or learn in a way that we don't expect them to learn, that if we're following curriculum, we're doing certain things where everybody's doing the same. We may not be able to tap into something that they really are either curious about, that they want to learn about, or create in a way that we never would have expected them to create. And so those are some ways, like a mindset way, and then also something I am intentional about including in my classroom to try to make sure we're tapping into that potential.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I can see that, in the work that you share, but also in, starting to know you for almost a half a year now, seeing that in some of the things you do. And I think that for your students, they see that belief in you, and that's got to be a big piece. And I know you write a lot about that, Brandon, about that inner belief. And when somebody sees that you believe in them, it just boosts that up. And Melissa, your kids must see that every day. And the things that you are asking them to do, how are you transitioning that into students who you've actually never shared a physical space with?
I think for me, it starts even before school starts. You establish that relationship, you introduce yourself, you want to get to know them, they want to get to know you, and you establish that family before school even starts. And then opening those doors, like lunches with me all the time, fun activities where they can be silly. They've seen me fail multiple times, and they are more apt to fail themselves, laughing every single day. I think it's so huge. I mean, I cringe to think about my first year, which was a long, 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 long time ago.
Not
But
that long, don't say that.
I cringe because I think, oh, some of the stuff I was like, I mean, back then it was teacher centered. Now, I mean, Emily and Molly, it's just the best, even though there's a pandemic, it's the best time to be a teacher, because all these doors are open: student voice, engagement, empowerment, having fun, gamification. I mean, the list goes on. So even though there's a pandemic, what a great first year you would have with all these doors open.
Awesome. No, and just to think about it in that space, I think it's setting that and growing it along the way. So others, if you have some things that you've been doing, I know because we have so many different settings, how we've been doing that for students would be great to hear.
Well, Brandon, I was flipping through the book before tonight, and I started reading the first couple of chapters, and just seeing your section returning to why and reminding yourself of your why. And I've been doing that a lot this year with my students, and just reminding them, why are we here in school? What do we learn? It's not just subjects. Why am I here? Why am I your teacher? And I'm teaching something new this year. I was moved from, I'm typically a reading specialist, but I'm teaching 4th grade this year just to help with smaller class sizes. And this has been a very interesting transition and challenge for everyone, for all of our students, for us as new educators, experienced educators. And it's reminding myself every day of my why, and then sharing that with my students. And I just hearing everyone every week when we come back to this group, it just continues to remind me of why I'm a teacher. And it's great to share this with your students, because I'm noticing the more I share with my students of why I love being a teacher, and I actually tell them I love being your teacher because it really helps them feel this sense of belonging that's so simple that you think that some students feel, and then you don't realize, like sometimes I don't realize that we think that they realize it, but they don't. And I've had a lot of those circumstances this year. I usually teach middle and high school. That's most of my experience has been with older students. So I'm used to just saying things and students get it and it clicks. You don't have to sometimes we had, I guess, more adult conversations with adult age students or secondary students. And now in elementary school, I'm reminding myself, sometimes I really do have to just say things and they get it. I know I'm rambling a little bit now. I hope what I'm saying is making sense, but I have to say a lot to my students this year that I didn't realize I have to say. And I'm definitely feeling what I think Melissa or Carrie, I don't remember which one of you just said it, but this is the best year to become a teacher. As hard and as challenging as this is, I am learning so much about myself, and I am not a new teacher. I can't even imagine what it must be like to be a brand new teacher this year. So Emily and Molly, I give you so much credit. I know Alex just wrote in the chat, I am your biggest fans too, because what you're doing this year, you will never forget this year, ever. So keep up with the great work this year, because we're all feeling it too, and we're not new. So you're amazing.
And seeing the two of you, the last 3 speakers, it seems like you have a lot to jump in here. So I'm going to jump to you two next, giving you a little heads up this time. But Ariel, you're so right. And that chapter was powerful, returning to that why, because I really noticed during this time doing a lot more virtual professional development, one of the things I've been doing is working with aspiring principals. Mm-hmm. And I asked that question, and a lot of times they essentially rattle off the job description. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I know what the job description is to be a principal. It doesn't mean you want the job. And I talk a lot about the nameplate, like this perceived power you have, and that's not why you want to do this. And I think that's so important that we as educators talk about what we do a lot. We talk about the specifics, we rattle job descriptions, but rarely talk about why we do it. And that's really at the heart of a lot of that section 1, which is powerful. So Emily and Molly, it seems like you've either agreed with a lot of people, or you're watching something on Netflix and having a good time with that, or you want to share why you went to the amazing Springfield College and are now in the teaching profession.
Well, I went to Springfield College because my dad went there, and I went to the campus and I just fell in love with it. I just loved like the motto that they stood for, and I felt very comfortable there. And I think that being comfortable is really important to also help you grow. And I think that I knew I've always wanted to be a teacher for a long time, or at least work with children. I'm the oldest of 4, and I have grown up babysitting and teaching swimming lessons. And I think that was one of the best things was, and like working in a preschool in my high school was just like, excuse me, like seeing kids learn things and just watching them grow and learn and be so excited to learn a new task. I just knew that like I wanted to be surrounded by that inspiration and like their empathy. I thought that it was just so amazing. And I just thought that was the job that I wanted to go into. And I am encouraged to continue to see that. And I think it's really exciting to continue seeing students growing and trying out new things. And teaching is far different from teaching swimming lessons, but it has new challenges, but it's definitely along the same roots, and it gives like you the same feeling, like the same warmth. It's awesome.
Well, in both cases, you don't want kids to drown. So I think you're doing
yes.
the right.
Totally scary.
Yes.
3-year-olds in the water. It's a disaster.
Yeah, I've also pretty much always known that I wanted to be a teacher or work with kids. And like, it's really interesting how you guys are talking about like how it's the best time to be a teacher right now, because school is really different now than it was even when we were in school. I feel like we're kind of like in a huge generational jump where from the last 15 years, there's been such an increase in everything in the world, in technology and like mental health and new behaviors. And so I used to sit at school and be like, well, when I have a classroom, like I am not gonna like put boring posters on the wall and think about it like that. And then when I went to Springfield College as well, and started learning all about teaching, it was just so much more than like what I thought it was as a kid. And one thing that Springfield College, it's like spirit, mind, body is the motto, the phrase that everyone lives by. And I think
Humanics philosophy.
The humanics philosophy, yes.
Thank you.
And I think it's cool to incorporate that into teaching, because when we were in school, it wasn't spirit or mind, it was learn this math and learn reading. And now it's like I can dedicate entire parts of my day to social emotional learning and incorporate that spirit, that mind and body, even like dancing around, doing exercises in between class. And so I think that it's been a really good experience. And I do agree. I honestly, when people say they feel so bad for us being a first year teacher, I genuinely feel like we have it better than you guys because we don't know anything else. Like we didn't come, I feel like it would be harder to be like a third year teacher where you're like getting into your groove and then going back to something else, but we're starting fresh. So honestly, it really has been great.
And it's not, I don't think it's gonna go back to what it was before. So it's not like next year, all of a sudden, we're going to be brand new teachers again, trying out what everyone else, like all the veteran teachers have been doing. Everyone's going to have to refigure it out. So it's not too bad.
No, and that attitude and just excitement is why you're just, your potential is continuing to rise, and just your confidence week to week has been amazing. And so one of the things I wanted to ask Brandon and Carrie is, you work with, I think, just from listening to your story, some more at-risk students, or not what would be considered the general population of our students. You know, I know that more with Carrie from hearing some of the small groups she does and intervention things. How do you assure that all of our learners are reaching their full potential, that the students who are at risk or the students who are working below grade level? I know, sorry, you must see this a lot being the now principal of multiple, an online academy, which they're probably falling behind in the gap. How are we assuring those at-risk students are reaching their full potential?
I think it starts with relationships. And I think, that's what it's all about. If you don't have that relationship with the student, then that's the problem. And it's going to be a hard road to go on. And I think what happens, I have kids in my class that are on a 8th grade reading level as 5th graders, and I have kids in my class that are on a kindergarten reading level, and I have kids that have just came to the country and have only been here for less than a year, for a couple months, and they don't speak any English. And how do you create a relationship with a student where you can't communicate? And that's very tricky. And I don't have all the answers, but one particular thing that I do is the moment that student comes into the class, I start a journal with the student, and we use a Google document, and I use Google Translate, and he uses, or she uses, Google Translate, and we just write to each other. Because when you were talking about earlier, Ariel, you were talking about the why, right? That's so important. And the why has more to it than that. So like there's a diagram in the book that you'll see, and it has 3 parts. It's the why, your story, and your purpose, and how those 3 things reciprocally interact. And how, if you understand the student's story, and you understand your story, obviously, if you understand the student's story and find the way to learn their story, then it will help you help them lead to their why and to their purpose. And it goes through you, because you'll understand, by learning their story, you're going to learn, okay, why am I working with this student in this way? What is it that I need to do to help this student? And what is this student interested in? And how is the student going to kind of like lower that filter so that he can let me in? And we always have that aha moment as educators, or as even coaches too, like as sports coaches. Molly and Emily, I forget. I'm not sure which is which. Molly on the right.
They always sit backwards. So
So one of you was speaking about how in coaching, right? So in coaching swimming, like coaching is like one of the easiest places to see that unlocked potential, because it's very simple. Like they weren't able to do something as an individual or as a group, and then all of a sudden, like in swimming, for example, all of a sudden they achieve that goal. So, and you see that, and it's like that aha moment. And so finding those ways to get there as an educator starts with the relationships. That's how I look at it.
I'm going to jump in. Brandon, I couldn't agree more with what you were saying, from the earlier statements that you were making about removing those blocks to the relationships being at the forefront. And it's the relationships with everybody. It's with the families, it's with the staff, it's with the students, it's across the board. You know, I've done more home visits this year than I've ever done in my whole career. You know, those ongoing conversations, and like you're saying, getting to the why, finding out those hidden stories and figuring out how we can make this better, because we're in this together and we're better together. So, you know, over my last few weeks, one of the things that my district did that I am super proud of, I've engaged in focus groups. I've had more conversations with parents, with staff, with students, finding out their perspectives. And it's been an ongoing conversation, but it was really nice to get everybody into all of these small groups where we can do a deep dive. All right, guys, believe it or not, we're at our mid-year mark. What's going well? Like, what are our strengths and where can we grow? So tomorrow we return from our February break as well. And I am super excited because one of the things that we have actually shifted, our special areas were asynchronous and we've made them synchronous. And, you know, Carrie and Melissa, to your point about, you know, the gamification and that level of play, that's what our little people have really been missing. And, you know, the videos have been phenomenal that the staff has put together, but for them to now have the opportunity to go live and engage with this staff is just dynamite. So, you know, it's just an ongoing conversation, and you have to have those deep relationships and those trusted conversations in order to put us into a space where we can grow and be better tomorrow than we are today.
no, and that's awesome. And, you know, we have about 5 minutes or so left, because we do try to get everyone out, you know, 45 minutes or so. Liv, thanks for jumping in from Canada. And those of you in the attendees, you know, we can see the chats. If you have something you would like to throw in there, how you're helping students reach their full potential, just throw in the chat. You know, I'd like to share. I'll bring you over and love to have you share.
Matt, can I just add something real quick?
Of course.
Sorry, you made me think of it, and I've heard it a few times. I think it's also, you know, we talk about the relationships with our students, but one thing that I talk a lot about in this book is the relationship with yourself and how important that is, because I don't know about all of you, but when the pandemic started, I was frustrated. I was scared. I was nervous. I was upset. I was stressed out. I was everything that all of you were and more. And for me, it was finding a space and finding what I needed for me. And for me, what it was Twitter chats. And all of a sudden I discovered these Twitter chats, which I'd never been on. And I wasn't really on social media much at the time. And as I started to like get onto social media, I started to realize, okay, I can start to take, I changed my tune from going from, you know, I had been writing this book for the past 3 years since I defended my dissertation. And I just kind of been keeping it and like saying, yeah, telling everybody, yeah, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a book. And then all of a sudden I was just, the pandemic hit and I was like, I am writing a book and I am getting it published. And as soon as I changed that tune, just everything about my journey started to change. I started to get in contact with more people like all of you on here. And I started to reach out to people that I met on social media. And I just kind of like left this comfortable place. And I started to go to this place that was a little bit uncomfortable, but it was because that's what I needed, because I needed to push myself out of that place of feeling sorry for myself, out of that self-limiting belief of like, hey, this is so frustrating. We're never going to be able to do this. Well, too bad we're doing it. And so that, you know, that relationship with yourself is really important. I do talk about that a lot. in the book. And I think that's important, that we all give ourselves that grace at the end of the day, whether we're a new teacher or a veteran teacher, or a retired teacher, whatever we are. It's important that we give ourselves the grace to understand that, like, yeah, like you're saying, sorry, like we're totally better together, but also adding to that is like, I can be better tomorrow than I was today.
No, and I think that's important. That's going to be kind of our kind of send off, like to do, give everyone a chance to speak to the end. One of the things, as you were saying, that is often hard for our profession is to say things that we are good at. Like, why not me? And be able to, insert that we're always deflecting praise. We're always afraid to say something we feel we're actually pretty accomplished at, because somebody's going to say, oh, who do you think you are? Or like, oh boy, you think you're so great at something. So in our profession, we say, oh, that someone says, oh, that lesson was great. Oh, the students were great. Oh, wow, you have a lot of potential. Oh, well, I got lucky. And we don't do enough to, give, you said, give ourselves some grace. And I say, give yourself some credit. Like, what are the things you are doing well? And I think sometimes it's hard to do that, to say what something that you do well. Me personally, I know that something I pride myself in and try to do and work is to mentor others to take that next step and really coach them up, to give them that confidence and value in themselves so that they can believe in themselves. And I think I do that a lot through just individual, coaching, or just, through putting myself out there and being vulnerable. And I think as we kind of go out today, I'd love for you all to share something you feel you've done really well, either this year or a skill that you have that you contribute to your school. And I know when I was a principal, one of the things that I always wanted people to share at the first staff meeting is, what is something you feel you do well? Don't pass it off. Do you do great opening meetings? Do you do great transitions? Do you, whatever it is, because we have to feel we're accomplished in something. So I'd love for you to kind of share something on the way out that you feel you are, have a skill, and it's great to do that. And I think, a big piece of, further part in the book that Brandon talks about is owning who you are. And I think that's critically important. So I'd love for you to jump in as we kind of close off this time. Brandon, I'm going to end with you. So if you can wait to the end, that'd be great.
I'm going to go first.
Great.
Jump right in there. The crickets. I'll break the silence. So I love that you brought this up, and I love that you're asking everybody in this room to do this, because I think that this is certainly something that educators don't do enough with. And I think it's really easy to acknowledge somebody else. So for me, I've been having an ongoing conversation. This past year has certainly made me dig deep and see myself in a different way. Ariel was saying how she learned a lot about herself this year, and I can certainly say the same thing. One of my strengths is bringing people together. I used to own a catering business. I used to run events for 500-600 people, and I brought that skill without a doubt into education. And I'd like to think that Mentor Roundtable, bringing people together for this book study, that's something that I definitely take pride in. So if you haven't already signed up, the link is in the chat. Matt's been sending out emails. I'm going to post it again on Twitter. So I look forward to connecting with you guys there with Brandon's book.
Awesome. Thank you.
I love this question too, because now I just wrote it down, ask my students this tomorrow. And I love having these conversations about that are very vulnerable. Sometimes it is really hard for us to speak about ourselves. And then I think if it's hard for us, how would it feel for a student to talk about themselves? So I am definitely bringing this to school tomorrow, but I love listening. And I think that I've become very patient this year, and my listening skills have been really fine-tuned and really getting to know each person that I work with, and especially my students. I went into teaching elementary this year thinking I would have to do a lot of the stories and cut the stories short with the students, like my grandma's cats, whatever. And okay, move on. But I'm really taking the time this year to listen to all of those stories when appropriate, because what my students say matters, because what I say matters. And I want someone to listen to me, so I want to listen to them. And my students have said that to me this year. They're like, you never cut us short when we're telling stories. I'm like, because your stories are important. And hearing them say that this year has made me really recognize how important it is to just keep listening to each other. And I love this question. I feel like a little like buzzing of excitement right now to go to school tomorrow to ask this.
Oh, that's good.
So thank you for that.
So I'll say also, Sari, like smooth transition in there. That was
Yeah,
like,
that was clap.
that was really sweet.
well
Very
done.
talented. So I guess I would say my strength as a teacher is taking students with really, large deficits in their areas of academics and really showing them that they have potential to do things that they never knew that they could. And my really big sweet spot is the more challenging the behavior of the students, that those are my wheelhouse for sure, is really behavior modification and really working with students who struggle with behaviors. The tougher the behavior, the more fun and the more wonderful it is for me to work with that student.
And I can see that when you come on weekly and just kind of gush about your job, and you're starting to get that smile back, and that's great. Melissa, I'm going to call you out.
I don't like this question.
Come on, you have so much to offer.
I would say my ability to make people laugh.
Okay, and that's
My kids think I'm quirky, and we laugh pretty much every single day. So that's probably it.
awesome. And you have a lot to offer this profession, this community, us. So just know that, and start to get comfortable with that. No matter how long you've been teaching, get comfortable with it.
For me, not necessarily like a teaching skill, but I suppose it's transferable. I've spent the better part of the last few years coaching in various like middle school sports and lacrosse and basketball and in singing groups in college. And I think that I've brought in some teamwork skills. And I think those kinds of, I like really love coaching those things and kind of helping my students find their roles in teamwork, just like I found helping my players find their roles in their athletics or in singing groups and things like that, like helping them find their niche. And I think that I try to bring that in, and something I am pretty good at. You are good at that. Thank you.
I have always been like a very creative person. I really like to bring fun things or artistic things or just different things into the classroom. And I've like taken advantage of the opportunity to do that when I was student teaching in college and doing a bunch of stuff. And I kind of thought going into this year that was gonna have to go on pause a little bit because it was gonna be a different year. But I found that I am still taking advantage of those opportunities and finding really fun, creative ways to do things with my students and kind of make things a little bit better and easier and more fun for them, make them more excited to come to school. So I think I've done well with that.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for sharing. I know that was a little, vulnerable and sometimes uncomfortable. It's definitely something, though, we have to continue to work at, because we all have things that we are doing well. And I think that benefits all of us. So thank you it's great to see all of you again. It's been like 3 weeks. Brandon, it was awesome to have you here. I look forward to continuing to work together on this book study, but also as teammates through Codebreaker. I see Christine is with us. She is newly signed to Codebreaker, writing her new book. So I'm excited for that too. So Brandon, last thoughts first, I'd love for you to share something you feel like you're accomplished at or have skill at. And then one last thought about unlocking unlimited potential, because you ask everybody else, finish this sentence. Unlocking limited potential is, now it's your turn since you're on our show to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So something I'm really proud of that I've been doing well is making connections. And I talked a little bit about it, through social media and how making those connections, it was difficult for me, and it's difficult. Like, I'm not the kind of person that it was very easy for me to promote this book and promote this work that I'm doing, but I believe in it. I really believe in it. And I believe in the work that led to this book. And it's complicated and it's difficult. There's millions of books out there, and there's great educators, and there's lots of great educators that have written great books. And what makes my book so special is that, it really comes from my heart. And it really comes from a place of research, and it comes from a place that I feel like it's really backed. And the thing is, you know, putting myself out there and doing videos and Sunday night from the streetlight and doing these live shows and all these different things that I've came up with to promote and make connections with others. It wasn't easy. And so I'm just saying to all of you, for, you know, and I posted a video today and it was about this. It was about, you all have great ideas inside of you. And this kind of goes to that unlocking unlimited potential, what it means, right? You all have ideas inside of you. And sometimes we don't really, there's so many ideas inside of us that we don't ever engage or that we don't ever initiate because we're so worried about the end product. We're so worried that, you know, oh, well, this is going to take so much to get here. Just take the first step. And if you take the first step, other ideas are going to happen and other opportunities are going to present themselves. So that's, you know, unlocking unlimited potential means to me right now, and it changes every day, but there's many layers to it. And I am super excited to engage in this conversation with you all. I'm super excited to be I just realized I'm the first ever book study for Mentor Roundtable. What an honor. So I'm excited to work with you all. And you can also, if you haven't gotten the book, you can also get the book on my website and I can sign it and send it to you. And one thing that I will write, that I say to everybody, in my signature is continue to educate with passion. So that's my sign off.
I like it. So it was awesome to see everyone back, and we'll be back next Sunday. And those of you who came back and tuned in again, thank you for joining us weekly. We also record this and send it out as a video, and also as a podcast. So for our team here, it was great to see you again. The rejuvenation of seeing all of you and your smiling faces and your energy is going to get us through the week. So Sari will be in touch about next step. Brandon, as always, thanks for connecting. And for the rest of our team, have the best week ever. See ya.